So today we're going to kick off a new fermentation. We're going to be making our very own Tabasco sauce. It's going to be probably a little bit hotter than this because I'm going to be using Piri Piri peppers. So let's get this out the way because we're not going to need that. I have a few different airlocks that I use when I make fermentations. So normally I use a plastic bag if I'm only going to be doing about 2 or 3 weeks. But today, because this will be quite a long fermentation, we need to have a proper airlock, I think, with this one. Now, I've run out of my Sterilocks and my other buckets and that sort of thing that I would normally use. So I've raided my brewing supplies and I've got myself an airlock here. Now, we're going to drill a hole in there so that we can stick that in there, and we're going to make ourselves a new fermentation jar. Now, we get that into there. And there we go. Now, it's a little bit loose in there, but that's not a problem at all because when you stick this in here, it's going to push out against the sides and you've got a perfect airlock. That just screws onto there. Fill that with water around the edge and you've got yourself an airlock. So let's prepare the mash. Let's get all this out the way. You want to make sure that you use the ripest peppers you can. Now, I know that these aren't all perfectly ripe like that there, but I don't have too many at this time of the year. So give them that a quick rinse. These are nice and shiny clean. So this method is a little different to how I normally ferment. So if you've looked at my other videos, you would have seen I normally would cut these up into chunks and then stick them into some 3% brine. This one's done a little differently, especially for the length of time we're going to do it. I'm going to use quite a bit more salt, but that's not to worry because you're going to dilute this quite a bit at the end. So with this, we're going to be using around about a 5%, 6% to weight salt mixture. Now, we're not adding any water to this. It's purely going to be peppers and salt. And that's the way that the Tabasco company have been doing it for years and years. However, they age their mash in big oak barrels that I think is from the Jack Daniel's brewery. They use those barrels and it adds a lovely flavor. So I don't have any oak barrels, but I have what I have here, and let's do this. So the first thing you want to do is weigh it out. We've zeroed this out, and we add the peppers. Zero that out again. There we go. We add that straight into the peppers over here. So I've decided to add a few more of my peppers. These are some that I actually have frozen previously. Because we have some fresh ones in here, there'll be plenty of the lactobacillus bacteria in here to start off the fermentation. But we're going to add these as well just because I don't think I have enough in there. So 6% of that is about just over 11 grams, so we'll add 11.5 grams of salt. Careful when you open it because it's going to hit you with a lot of heat. So that's what you want it to look like. Proper mash, everything all properly mashed in. No big pieces left behind, just proper mash. And the smell that you're getting here, it's that raw chili smell. That's going to completely change. The entire flavor profile here changes over the next 6 months. So we're going to carefully put this in the jar now. So make sure you clean this as well as you can, especially on the outside. You don't want any little bits around the edges. So give it a good wipe, especially where the cap is going to go on in the threads, because you don't want any rubbish getting underneath there. And we're going to stick that on. And now we're going to put some sterilizer in there as well. Normally I put vodka in the top here. You don't want to use just plain water. That's not normally a good idea, but vodka works well. And there we go. That doesn't allow any bad air in, but allows the CO2 that's going to be developing in this mash to come out. A couple other things just to point out. Firstly, make sure you label it so you know what you got here, because in 6 months' time you're going to probably forget. But also I would make sure that you check this, especially the first week or two. Make sure you check it, see that there's nothing growing on the top, that all looks healthy. A little bit of white on the top is not really the end of the world. It's when it's going green or black, that's not a good thing. But with the amount of salt in here, this should be all right. So we'll come back in about a week or two and we'll check on it. It's now about 2 weeks later, and let's have a look at the mash, see what it's doing. So there it is. Still a lovely color, no problems on the top. So obviously the white, you can see there's a little bit of white there around the edges. It's not the end of the world. We'll come back and check on that, just make sure it hasn't grown too much. If it has, then I'll just stir it back into the fermentation. So you can see the moisture that's been generated over there at the bottom of the fermentation. And over time that'll just create more and more. So that's looking good to me. And we'll just put it back in there.